Hey everybody, I'm Chris Doering, and you may know me from my days playing football at Florida in the NFL, or now on the SEC Network with ESPN. But I also have had a mortgage company here in Gainesville, and been doing that for the last 16 plus years. And one of the things I'm very passionate about is helping to spread knowledge, to debunk myths, and to overall sing the praises of my team. I have a wonderful team here, and these are two very valuable pieces of that team. Kristen Little, who's does it all, has been with me for, probably 15 of the 16 years or so. And then Chris Moebus, who is the finest LO that I've ever been around, has handled a ton of our managerial stuff on the sales side as well. But we're here and passionate today about talking about VA financing, because I think there's so many misnomers around what can and can't be done with VA financing, and it comes to offers being accepted. Nothing more frustrating to me than hearing people, listing agents, the sellers themselves say, hey, we're not going to take a VA offer because it's more difficult or because it's more costly. At the end of the day, you're basically taking our veterans out of the mix, and that's one thing I want to be passionate about, is helping to advocate for them. So what are some of the biggest myths, or maybe the number one biggest myth that drives you crazy that you hear?
The number one biggest myth is they're not as qualified buyers, which is typically going to be so far from the truth. These are usually very, very well qualified buyers taking advantage of a benefit that the federal government actually guarantees. One of the big things too that comes up a lot of the things is those non-allowables. What a seller is supposed to be paying for all these different costs.
That's like an antiquated thought that's been outdated for decades now,
yeah.
Right?
So, it still does exist in certain states, but here in the state of Florida, it does not exist anymore. The non-allowables, meaning a seller has to pay certain closing costs for a buyer.
So the objection has always been, it's going to cost my seller a little bit more money. I'm not going to take that offer because of what the seller will incur. But that's something that doesn't exist in the state of Florida, as you said.
No, this was well over a decade ago. They had actually eliminated the non-allowables because it really puts a veteran at a disadvantage when they're going to buy a home. And so the state recognized that, and it happens in a lot of other states as well. But the state of Florida does not have non-allowables, meaning a buyer pays all of the buyer-paid closing costs. Seller does not have to pay for anything, and that includes a WDO, which is another one of the big things that we hear a lot, that the seller has to pay for this, this WDO report. That is not the case.
We'll get into talking a little bit more specifically about the WDO aspect and how that may differ from other types of financing. But I think one of the other things we hear, Kristen, is the scrutiny of the appraisals and how much more difficult it is for the property to pass what is supposed to be the minimum property requirements. What are the differences that are the real guideline requirements that VA has?
Well, they're really not as strict as people think. The big issues that come up on VA appraisals are safety concerns, which anyone's going to have safety concerns. If those come up, you're going to want them addressed. Wood rot is another issue that comes up a lot, but we see that in Florida all the time, and it gets fixed. So it's not nearly as scrutinized as people think.
One of the other things that we hear quite a bit is, in regards to VA from listing agents, buyer's agents, concern is in regards to roof inspections. Roof inspections are not required by VA. The reality is roof inspections are not. Roof inspections might be needed because of an insurance issue, but VA has no requirement.
Which is the same for FHA.
Whether you use conventional, FHA, USDA, any other loan program would have the same requirement from an insurance standpoint, but VA has no requirement whatsoever.
So there's no scrutiny of the roof that would be any different than what we would look at any normal conventional loan?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely not. Not at all. Roof inspections are completely off the board, not needed. Kind of going back to the appraisal piece, the VA appraisers have to maintain a certification through VA. And so these are typically going to be your most seasoned appraisers that are really, really in tune with the market. There's a number of things that they have to keep in mind as well, as far as metrics, turn times on appraisals. You have 10 business days to get it back once it's been ordered. The appraisers are typically going to be more seasoned as well, meaning they've been in the market a good while. They know what they're doing. They know the process. The VA appraisal, my favorite thing about VA appraisals is, we all know if any appraisal comes in short, what do we have to do? We have to go back to the appraisal, the actual appraiser, and rebut that loan. As we know, sometimes we don't have a ton of success through that. Well, VA offers, and only VA offers, this lever that is exclusive to VA, where we can actually go back to the regional loan center in the state of Florida. If we can't get the appraiser to see eye to eye on a value, we can actually supersede, go above and beyond, go over the head of that appraiser and send it to the RLC. The RLC has basically, they're basically panel appraisers that they have there on site. You can send the appraisal in, and they can actually go in and make the changes. So that NOV value, that notice of value number that comes through, can actually be turned over not just by the appraiser, but also by the panel.
That's been one of the more frustrating things in the past, I think, with our experience when we're talking about rebutting appraisers, is you're actually going back to the actual appraiser that did the original report. It's almost a slap in the face to them that you're questioning them. What are your credentials to do that? So you see those guys most of the time having their heels dug in. So having an opportunity to go to a third party that can look at it through a little different lens, I think, is important. And knowing how to navigate that path, I think, is an important aspect of going through the VA side. Let's talk about originally what happens when the value is going to come in short. There's a Tidewater requirement. What does that mean exactly?
Well, Tidewater is a heads up. It gives you 48 hours to get with your realtors first and see if there's other properties that could support the value. So before anything else, you get a chance to find comps that would support the value.
So you're going back at that point in time, engaging your agents. Hey, here's where you guys set the contract price. Give us some supporting comps to be able to help out. Right now, the appraiser's given us a heads up, as you talked about, that it's not going to come in. So at that point in time, it becomes more of a collaborative effort to try to overcome what is going to be a potential issue with the contract price.
Exactly. Yes, I mean, that's invaluable. You don't get that on any other type of loan. So that heads up and then engagement from the other realtors.
So I'll be honest, there's not a ton of times where I think the comps do come back and significantly raise the price. So at that point in time, what is the process for going down to that regional panel that you're talking about?
It's actually not very difficult at all. You typically send the same data that the agent may have provided.
You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say it's really difficult, but there's only one lender that really knows how to navigate.
That's true.
Right?
That's true. We do it very, very well. We do it better than most, without question. And maybe some don't even know that that's an option. That's another consideration there. So the process is really that easy. You send an email to the RLC. We have the email. If you guys need it, make sure you call us for your VA loans, and we can access that if you need it. But you send an email with the supporting data along with the actual appraisal report, and you send it to the RLC. They have desk appraisers right there sitting on site that will get started on it. It typically takes about 24 to 48 hours to get a result back.
You know what I've heard from you in the 48-hour requirement on the Tidewater, from you and how quickly that takes, is that there are standards that these VA appraisers have to abide by that are strict, right? Unlike the conventional, the FHA, the USDA appraisals, there is not that set timeline. So these appraisers are held to a high level of accountability in terms of timeliness. Again, further debunking the idea, oh, it's going to take longer for us to get this appraisal back and it's going to delay our closing. So I think that's an important thing to remember as well, is that this thing is going to move quickly because of what the VA themselves have set up.
The RLC is your friend. As a lender, it is your friend. They can help you with so many things, from appraisals to exceptions, private road agreements, things of that nature. It is a huge resource to have as a lender, and agents need to know that VA is really interested in getting veterans into homes.
Across the board. We're not talking just appraisers here. And I think that's an important point to make, is that it is not an adversarial relationship with the VA or the VA appraisals or anything else. It is a really trying to advocate for the veteran, as it should be. It's the best financing available. These veterans have served our country and deserve to have this. And I think, again, that's why we're so passionate about coming out and debunking some of these myths that I think exist with sellers or agents, and trying to help them understand that, you say this a lot, if done correctly by knowledgeable loan originators that have the platform to execute at a high level, is the easiest financing out there.
It's the easiest loan. When we help veterans, obviously we love helping veterans, but more importantly, we know that this is going to be one of the easier of the lending options that we have, especially with our access to the RLC. And we've developed some good relationships with the RLC here locally, not locally, but down in St. Pete. That's been very, very helpful to us throughout the years. So It is a, again, it goes back to this, it's this difficult loan, it has all these requirements. It's the easiest loan in the book that we have, without question.
And we can get into some of the dynamics that exist between brokers and correspondent lenders and direct lenders, but what we are direct to the agencies, Fannie, Freddie, and Ginnie, meaning we underwrite strictly to the guidelines. In this case, we're underwriting strictly to the VA guidelines that are very flexible, I think, in a lot of ways, that as long as you're able to make sense and defend your position, you're able to originate loans along with those guidelines that I think other lenders don't have that same aggressiveness to. Talk about your experience with our underwriting manager, her knowledge of VA loans and the process of finding ways to make deals work as opposed to finding ways to kill them.
Absolutely. We work directly with her. When we have questions, from the very first phone call, we can get with her to clarify anything that we need to know. If we have questions about how income is calculated or how credit is going to be viewed, we can get an answer right away. That you can't do that just anywhere. And with VA specifically, she also acts as our staff appraisal reviewer. And throughout the process, she's the point person. She's making the decisions about approval. She's looking at the appraisals. She's our go-to for all of it.
So I think that that's an important point to continue to talk about. Everything we've mentioned here so far has different people in the transaction working together to make the deal work. And you mentioned before, it's the easiest one to get done. Why are these loans easier than, say, a conventional loan or an FHA loan?
Well, I think it goes back to, VA its intention is to get the veteran into a home, right? So it has a lot of different flexibilities.
And what flexibility in terms of, what are the biggest things?
I think debt to income ratios is a huge flexibility. I think they
Where do you typically see like the max on a conventional back end?
Well,
ratio?
Again, it depends on a couple of things, but typically 45 on a back end debt to income ratio. And a back end debt to income ratio is your existing debt plus your proposed housing payment. It's maxed out at 45. We have certain situations where we've gotten debt to income ratios of 65, 67, 68 approved simply because there are some mitigating factors, is what we like to refer to them as, that supports this particular loan. Residual income, that's something we could go into, is one of the, VA looks at what's residual income. That's the money that a borrower has after all of their expenses are paid, and that includes your taxes, your insurance, all of the things that you get out of payroll. There's a number that is required in certain regions that a borrower must have. If they have a certain percentage above that required residual, you can get some loans done that you would be surprised.
So that's a great point, because I think understanding how to calculate income is an important thing across the board, but understanding how to calculate residual income is a totally different thing that we've seen many times help us get a deal done that other lenders haven't been able to because they don't understand that calculation.
Absolutely. It's not something that you're trained in. It's really just not. That takes experience. And that's something that
on the job.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Right. And I think that's maybe the best part of what we offer as a group here at Chris Doering Mortgage, the overall experience, the number of years that we've, one, worked together, but two, worked in the business and understand inevitably challenges are going to come up, but using some of those past experiences, using the ways that we've overcome issues in the past to help make deals work in the present is an important part. So everything I've ever accomplished in my life goes back to my days playing sports, and we talk about probably to the detriment of you guys having to hear it over and over again, but how we do things to work together, to use our compensating skills to make things work. Nothing more passionate for this group and me personally than helping find ways to make deals work for the veterans. Love to have an opportunity to work with you. If you're a veteran or you're an agent representing a veteran, please give us a call. You can check us out at mygatormortgage.com or call us here at the office, 352-244-0840. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to catching up soon. Hey, Chris Doering here. And one thing that I hope you know about me is how competitive I am and how passionate I am about the things that I'm committed to. My team's the same way, and one of the things we've set out to try to accomplish is to help provide knowledge to buyers, to sellers, to agents on how things may or may not be true that you've heard as it relates to financing. We're doing this segment called Debunking with Chris Doering Mortgage and want you to be a part of it as well. If there's a question that you have, feel free to email us at askchris@mygatormortgage.com or call us here at the office, 244-0840. No question is stupid, so please reach out. And if you're thinking it, I'm sure somebody else is thinking it, and it'll be great content for us to address here in future episodes.